Chapter 162. Shizun, I'll stand with you. About that, Shizun, actually, I've known since Peach Blossom Springs. The truth was that he'd known this since his previous lifetime, but there was no way he could tell Chuaning that. When I was out on a walk, I overheard Mei Hanshua talking about her with someone from Tashu Palace. Moran grinned. Even back then, I trusted the accuracy of Mei Hanshua's judgment, and once I was watching her carefully, I became certain that Ye Wangxi couldn't be a man. Why? Hasn't Shizun noticed that her collars are always pulled up very high? They cover her whole neck. It's a very unusual style. Most people might have one or two robes like that, but I've never seen her without one. After some consideration, Chuaning said, I never noticed. Moran used his free hand to demonstrate on Chuaning. They come up to here, more or less. As he spoke, his fingertips inadvertently skimmed Chuaning's throat. The slight jut there was fascinatingly delicate. He couldn't help but quickly brush over it again. How fierce and untamable his Shizun was, Moran thought. Yet he bared such a vulnerable spot to Moran's fingers. Let him touch. It was a thrilling feeling. Thus diverted, Moran forgot to look where he was headed. The sword flew so swiftly that by the time he registered Chuaning's "Watch out!" it was too late. With a loud crash, the sturdy sword sailed straight into an enormous tree. The only coherent thought in Moran's head was that he must keep a tight grip on Chuaning's hand. In his anxiety, a quiet "Chuaning" escaped his lips, but he blurted it so quickly, and the tree split so thunderously that Chuaning didn't hear. Chuaning's head was spinning with rage. Moran called this sword riding? What was wrong with running along the rooftops and planting his feet on solid ground? But no, Moran had to show off. The two of them tumbled heavily to the ground. Moran was first to land, his back thudding against the rocky, uneven forest floor. He wasn't really injured, though of course it hurt. Yet as he lay there, looking up through the branches at the sky full of twinkling stars, he suddenly felt rather pleased. Thankfully, it had been Chuaning who landed on him, and not the other way around. He couldn't help but grin. Chuaning had struck his chest hard enough to set his ribs aching, but Moran couldn't stop himself. His eyes crinkled, the corners of his lips curled, and his cheeks dimpled with deep pools of infatuation. Chuaning, raising his head to find Moran smiling like a fool, was incensed. What are you laughing for? Did the fall knock your brains out? Moran seized the chance to embrace him, holding him tight in his arms. It wasn't the right time or place, yet he had an irresistible urge to reach up and stroke Chuaning's hair. The thought had hardly occurred to him before he acted on it. Chuaning was right. The fall had probably knocked his brains out. Shizun. His fingers were light over Chuaning's hair. The darkness of the night seemed to have handed him a key, opening the box in which his secret desires were locked. Moran could no longer contain the intimacy in his tone. It flooded through his words like a tidal wave. So honey-sweet was Moran's voice that Chuaning instantly froze, panicking. He scrambled to collect the pieces of his stern dignity. What are you calling me for? Can't even ride a sword without falling. Very skilled indeed. Moran sighed softly. He ran his fingers over those inky locks a final time and forced a quiet laugh. Shizun is right to reprimand me. Could I please ask Shizun to get off of me now? Internally, he was thinking, could you please lie in my arms a little longer? But he obviously couldn't say that. Face grim, Chuaning jumped nimbly to his feet and pulled Moran up after him. Are you all right? He asked stiffly. Were you hurt? I'm fine. Moran smiled. I'm tough as nails. Falling's no big deal. Chuaning was about to say more when he noticed a wilted flower on Moran's head, probably knocked off a tree in the fall. Chuaning narrowed his phoenix eyes. Your head. Am I hurt? Moran reached up and felt his own head, but everything seemed fine. No, you're blooming. Chuaning plucked the flower from Moran's hair and handed it over expressionlessly. Self-conscious, Moran rubbed the back of his head, the gesture full of bashful reticence. His smile only grew more brilliant. Chuaning turned aside and cleared his throat. If you're fine, let's get going. On the no sword. Chuaning turned to nail him with an angry glare. Qinggong. Qinggong it is then. Moran said with reluctance and waved his hand to return the sword to his jiankun pouch. The brush grew increasingly dense deeper into the forest. Traveling by sword wouldn't have been much faster anyway. Chuaning's footwork was impeccable. He soared like the wind, skimming the ground as if it were water. As the cool breeze bathed Moran's face, the irrepressible excitement in his heart calmed some. Suddenly, Chuaning's voice sounded from up ahead. In a tone that implied that he couldn't care less, he asked, How did you know about the mole on Song Chitong's leg? Moran stared blankly, caught off guard. With a thump, the mighty Mozongshe once again crashed face first into a pine tree. Giving him a look, Chuaning said, Do you have night blindness? Nope. Moran groaned. Sorry, just a little absent-minded today. Chuaning frowned slightly. Then, with a sudden realization, he flew into a rage. Are thoughts of the mole on Song Chitong's leg so distracting? A cultivator must keep his heart pure and free from desire. If you're so flustered after one glimpse of a beauty, what's the point of cultivating at all? Moran didn't reply. He felt that Chuaning was quite correct, except he'd identified the wrong subject. The beauty he coveted wasn't Song Chitong, but the fiery-tempered man before him, who was roaring like an angry snow leopard. He sighed and looked tenderly at Chuaning. Shizun, Song Chitong isn't my type. You're overthinking it. I heard about the birthmark on her leg from someone at Zhuanyuan Pavilion auction. I've never seen it myself. Don't be mad. Why would I be mad? Chuaning paused. Forget it. Let me ask you. If Ye Wangxi is a woman, then why did Song Chitong's cinnabar mark disappear? It can't be a coincidence. You're right about that. Does Shizun remember the bracelet I gave Song Chitong? I designed a spell and placed it on that bracelet. Moran hesitated. It took me 4 days. I didn't do a great job. But as long as Song Chitong wore the bracelet, it would temporarily mask the dot of cinnabar Hanlin the sage left on her wrist. Chuaning didn't reply, but he looked unhappy. He felt that Moran was still hiding something from him. Moran had changed a great deal during these past 5 years, and somehow he'd picked up Chuaning's own bad habit of meddling in others' affairs. But Chuaning tended to intervene only when he stumbled across injustice, helping people where he could. For Moran to pour so much effort into influencing the situation, even inventing a little spell to unmask someone's true nature and prevent her from marrying into Rufeng's sect, was rather excessive. It made no sense for Moran to have gone to such lengths unless there was some deep animosity between him and Song Chitong, or an important connection between him and Ye Wangxi. Moran sensed Chuaning's thoughts from his silence. Trailing close behind as they leapt through the air, he said, Shizun. What? Chuaning replied coolly. Moran couldn't talk about the events of his past life, but he also didn't want Chuaning to worry. After some thought, he decided to share half his true feelings with Chuaning. Shizun, Ye Wangxi is a really good person. At Zhuanyuan Pavilion, she staked everything to save a woman she'd never seen until that moment. You know this too. But Ye Wangxi likes Nangongxi. Could you tell? Chuaning hesitated, then said, More or less. I saw that tonight. That's good. I learned of Miss Ye's identity some time ago, so I'd long guessed her feelings. Until now, Song Chitong wasn't aware that Ye Wangxi is a woman, so she respected Ye Wangxi and harbored no malice. But if Song Chitong married Nan Gongxi, Rufeng's sect might no longer keep the secret from her. Knowing Song Chitong's personality, she would definitely see another woman with feelings for Nan Gongxi as a thorn in her side. Moran paused. In his past life, Song Chitong had sensed what passed between himself and Chuaning. Overcome with jealousy, she had taken advantage of Moran's absence from the palace to extract all 10 of Chuaning's fingernails. What would happen if Ye Wangxi fell into the hands of a woman like this? It needn't be said. Such acts of cruelty were the kinds of evil deeds Song Chitong committed, never so heinous as to be noteworthy in themselves. Rather, they were minor brutalities that allowed her to hide behind someone even crueler, waiting until they had finished to prolong her victim's suffering. Kindness and evil were similar in this way. If the sky fell, the tallest person would also take the brunt of the blow. The most benevolent person would be crushed to death first, like Chu Chun, cast out by the vulnerable citizens he sought to protect. Likewise, the most malevolent person would also be the first destroyed, like Taxianjun, wanted dead by all under heaven. But if not for these small acts of evil that piled up across the torrents of time, if not for countless minor malefactors who cut one scar after another into Moran's body, would Taxianjun, Mo Weiyu, have come to be? Aren't you worried that you're asking for trouble, sticking your nose in like this? Asked Chuaning. Moran knew he had shown too much of his hand, but in his past life he had dragged Ye Wangxi into a sea of blood. Even if, in this life, the fate of Rufeng's sect had nothing to do with him, he owed Ye Wangxi a debt. So he had acted without hesitation, even at the cost of crossing boundaries and attracting suspicion. He wanted those he had wronged in the previous lifetime to live better this time around, not just Chuaning, but the others as well. He still hoped to atone for his crimes. Of course I'm worried, said Moran. But since I knew the truth, I wanted my conscience to be clear. Chuaning still felt that Moran had acted too rashly, but he didn't pursue the matter further after hearing his answer. At that moment, a sickly sweet smell drifted on the wind, and a strong flow of spiritual power materialized in front of them. Before Chuaning could react, Moran had paled. This is bad, he said in a low voice. It's the Qianlong chess formation. It's coming from over there. The putrid smell pervaded the night air. Up above, ghosts had started to crawl out of the rift in the sky. Ahead, 5 pillars of light abruptly burst from the ground. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. Just like Butterfly Town. Gaze locked on those lights, Chuaning said, It's him. Moran of course knew whom he meant. Jincheng Lake, Peach Blossom Springs, Butterfly Town. 5 years had passed since he'd last appeared. The mysterious figure pulling the strings, the fake Gochin. Moran was immediately uneasy. This Qianlong chess formation was completely different from last time. It wasn't concealed or disguised at all, as though the one deploying it saw success within reach, all but certain. The forest birds startled into flight and scattered in every direction. Chuaning sped toward the heavenly rift, Moran right on his heels. As they drew near, they could see a stream of assorted fiends pouring from the crack in the sky. The infinite hells, muttered Moran. This rift was identical to the one in Butterfly Town 5 years ago. It also went to the infinite hells. In a panic, Moran looked over and grabbed Chuaning's wrist. Shizun, don't go over there. Don't be ridiculous. Moran knew it was a silly thing to say, but in the course of 2 lifetimes, He had witnessed 2 heavenly rifts to the infinite hells, and their aftermaths were like a lingering nightmare. How could he not worry, now that he was faced with a third? But words like, "don't go over there," were less than useless. A person's character was a difficult thing to change. A man like Chewanning would never turn and run from a calamity. Even if he were given 1,000 chances to do so, he would refuse each and every time. Moran looked at Chewanning and found himself at a loss for words. Chewanning glanced at him. "Don't worry, I'll be careful." He raised his hand and summoned Tianwen. Its golden brilliance lit his slender figure as sparks scattered in all directions. Moran stared into Chewanning's eyes and finally heaved a sigh. With a matching flash of dazzling light, Jiangui materialized in his palm. Its scarlet glow met Tianwen's warm halo in an interplay of red and gold, twinned weapons that had crossed generations to meet, equal in might, matchless in power. "Okay, I won't try to dissuade you. Whatever you want to do, Shizun, I'll be right beside you." The spiritual light of their weapons shone in their eyes, resplendent. Fiery red blazed with molten gold, and molten gold was dyed fiery red. "I'll go with you." Chewanning studied Moran's dopey expression as he made his promise so sincerely. He felt both warm and helpless. Moran's eyes held too many emotions, no few of which had long overstepped the affection a disciple should feel for his master. Chewanning didn't dare ascertain what exactly those emotions might be. He reached up to prod Moran on the forehead. "There's no reward." Moran stared for a moment, then reached up and pulled Chewanning's hand away. It took everything in him to resist the urge to bring that hand to his lips and kiss it. So there isn't." He grinned. "Let's go." Lit by the red-gold glow of the holy weapons, the pair were like immortals passing through the gloom of the night. They came quickly to the heart of the hunting ground's dense forest, Gangkorn Lake. Chewanning and Moran stilled their breathing and hid in the tangerine grove to study the rift. The spiritual power that nourished the lake had been cut off, and the water's surface had frozen over in the bitterly cold night. On each of the 4 shores of the lake, an array had been drawn, a shining weapon struck in the middle of each. 4 holy weapons of different elements? Chewanning asked softly. Moran was taken aback by the sight. So the holy weapon thefts over the past 5 years were related to him. But he was using human hearts at Butterfly Town. Why switch arrays? Moran was about to answer when Chewanning touched a finger to his lips. "Quiet. Look over there." Moran followed his line of sight. A group of Wufang sect's guards walked slowly along the lake in the distance, mixed with all the young cultivators who had been chosen for the hunt. Spiritual power flowed from their chests, merging into a single stream that poured into the holy weapons of different attributes. The weapons fed on the strong, pure energies glowed brighter and brighter, the rays of their light stretching toward the heavens. As they watched, the seam in the sky split apart into a massive chasm. The portal leading to the infinite hells had been ripped wide open. Moran's eyes widened. What are they doing? These guards are all unconscious and being controlled by the Chenlong chess formation. An anxious crease appeared between Chewanning's brows. His eyes swept over the group on the shore and suddenly stopped. The color drained from his face, and he gripped Moran's shoulder with trembling fingers, not at all like his usual self. What is it? Moran turned. After searching a moment, he saw a familiar figure walking among the crowd. A Shu Meng? He exclaimed in fright.